Let's move over and talk about the United States. Excuse me. US Vice President Kamala Harris has gone on the offensive against Donald Trump in the first rally of her White House campaign. She is portraying November's election as a choice, really, between her as a former prosecutor and what she calls a convicted felon. The Daily Telegraph is very strong on this, actually. She called Donald Trump a liar, a fraudster and a cheat in her first rally since taking over the Democratic presidential campaign from Joe Biden. As I was saying, she basically is saying, look, you can either go with me, I'm a prosecutor, or you go with him, and he's a criminal. This is what she said.
So as Leah told you, before I was elected vice president, before I was elected United States Senator, I was elected Attorney General of the state of California, and I was a courtroom prosecutor before then. And in those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
Lots of stories about this morning. Meanwhile, of course, Donald Trump assailed her record on the border. Of course, this is really her weak spot because, of course, she was in charge of the immigration brief. He posted on social media, lying Kamala Harris destroys everything she touches. Now, there is a new poll from Reuters and Ipsos showing her with a 2-point lead over Trump, 44% to 42%. Now, you may argue this is the honeymoon period, of course, for her. And the question is whether she can maintain that lead. I was actually just looking up some of the fundraising that's coming in. We spoke about this yesterday, just the amount of money that is coming in. Also, she seems to be attracting a lot of money from black women, black men across the United States. There was one event which was called Win with Black Men. 53,000 attendees raised more than $1.3 million in just a matter of hours. Absolutely extraordinary, and she's clearly tapping into something there. Joining me now, Greg Swenson, Chairman of Republicans Overseas UK. Good morning, Greg.
Hello, David. Good to be here.
Well, great to see you. Also, where are you on this? Because we felt that under Biden, of course, the Democratic Party were in serious trouble, and it looked like a walkover for Trump. How things change in a matter of days?
Yeah, that's true. But I think Kamala ultimately will be worse than Biden. Now, her numbers are better than Biden's right now. It's always, nice to have a fresh face. And I think she'll get a little bump from just, the excitement of it all. But she's historically polled worse than Joe Biden, which is difficult to do. He was polling lower than any president in modern history, even lower than Jimmy Carter. So I don't think this is much more than a temporary bump. Her track record is horrible. So I'm not worried about this sudden excitement about Kamala Harris. Once things settle down, I think she'll go back to being, even worse than Biden in terms of polling.
I mean, she's certainly a different woman, isn't she? She's far more confident. There was a lot talked about the fact she had a very annoying laugh, that she seemed to just agree with Biden the whole time. This is a very confident woman who was addressing that huge crowd, the crowd chanting Kamala, Kamala. Also, that kind of the wave of enthusiasm. And the question, I suppose, is can she keep this momentum up? Now, if the money flows in, and money talks in American politics,
sure.
If you are then... And she's quite interesting because she's appealing to a broad section of society, isn't she? And obviously, as I was saying, she's got all of this cash coming in from various groups, including black women, black men, men to win, or whatever it's called. I mean, so actually, money talks.
To a certain degree. I mean, look, the Democrats always, at least in the last generation, have a better money advantage than the Republicans do. That's not a surprise to me. Even Biden was going to have a money advantage over President Trump. So the question is, will it translate into popularity or into votes? And the answer is probably no. She had a bit of a surge in fundraising because so many people were holding back, with President Biden still in the nomination process. So they were holding back, and they basically threatened to withhold until he dropped. And then, of course, when it was announced on Sunday that she would take his place, it surged. But I'm not sure that'll translate into consistent fundraising, nor will it translate into votes. People don't like her, is the bottom line. Now, granted, President Trump is a relatively unpopular president or nominee, but compared to Kamala, compared to Joe, he's actually quite popular. Her negatives are much higher than Trump's, and I think that that'll be reflected in the polls in the next few weeks. But fundraising, absolutely. Like, the Democrats have always been able to raise more money than Republicans, especially from the larger donors. President Trump has had a good few months with that. There's some real excitement, some real momentum for Republicans and for Trump. But I'm not surprised that a lot of donors that typically were big Democrat supporters were holding back against Biden, and now will kick in with Kamala. But again, I don't think it translates to votes or to popularity, especially given how she kind of snuck in the back door. The party that's kind of defending democracy has completely bypassed the democratic process. That'll be reflected in the polls too.
And I suppose also, as she lays out the difference between the two candidates on things like gun control, abortion access, child poverty and stuff, I think that's where this starts to get really interesting. I think you've got 103 days to go or thereabouts until the presidential election, and with the polls looking like they do, it's all to play for. Greg, really good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Greg Swenson, chairman of Republicans Overseas.